So, good evening, everyone. The topic of my presentation is the effect of perceived cultural expertise on foreign news credibility. What I'll do during this talk is briefly speak about broad issues around foreign news credibility, why this matters for Global Press Institute, which is an organization that trains and employs women as journalists all around the world, and I'll refer to them as GPI from now on, as well as kind of talk a little bit about some of the implications or potential implications for development practice. Essentially, really the problem is this. News coverage of the rest of the world is limited, and when we do get it, oftentimes it's from a single narrative that can distort our understanding of the world. So really just want you to take a brief look at this map. This is kind of the world as we might imagine it. But when you look at this one, this is really kind of the world as it's presented by American cable news. As you can see, about 79% of it goes to the United States, and when the rest of the world is covered, it's often limited to things like bombs, natural disasters, or financial calamities. And part of the reason behind this is that network executives tend to view foreign news as high cost, low return. Essentially, it's expensive. And part of the problem behind that is the majority of Americans only pay attention to foreign news when something that they feel particularly important is happening. And additionally, this problem was sort of exacerbated by the Great Recession, where many newspapers had to cut staffs and they had to reduce coverage. And really, this is something that many Americans have noticed. According to Pew Research Center, 31% of Americans in 2013 actually abandoned a news outlet because of concerns around the quality of the coverage. Additionally, it doesn't really stop there. In 2016, for example, only 32% of Americans expressed at least a fair amount of trust that mainstream media would report the news fully, fairly, and accurately. Beyond that, about 74% of Americans believe that mainstream media is biased, as well as 64% believe that fake news causes confusion about basic facts. So obviously this is an issue that doesn't just affect GPI, it affects really any news organization. And according to the Media Insight Project, Americans are twice as likely to subscribe to a news organization if they trust it, as well as pay for it, share its content, or follow it on other ways online. So this is relevant to Global Press Institute in particular because they're looking to increase their rate of earned revenue. So the question that I kind of want to ask specifically for them is, can GPI use its unique advantages to differentiate itself from other news organizations? So one way they're already able to do that is by training and hiring local women. They're able to reduce cost. And because of that, they also have, they're employing people who are intimately familiar with the places that they're reporting on. So the idea behind this project is to better understand how news consumers might view the perceptions or the value added of having people report from the locale from which they're actually from. And what I'll call this is sort of this idea of cultural expertise. Now this can be something like deciding what story you actually present, how you frame that story, as well as really the access you have to the people who are telling their stories. So specifically my method for this was just research into the idea of credibility as well as foreign news trends. But then I wanted to get a specific understanding of how this affects GPI directly. So what I did was design and conduct a survey experiment using Qualtrics and Amazon Mechanical Turk. Basically I had a control and treatment group which was randomly assigned. And basically both groups received an article that was written by GPI on transgender health issues. But the treatment group actually got a specific message on sort of things about how GPI operates, as well as this notion of cultural expertise of the author. And the results of that are here. So as you can see, hopefully it doesn't come out very clear here, but all the ones on top are green, and those are the ones that were in the treatment group. Basically, when people got information about how GPI operates, they were more likely to rate it higher in a number of different factors related to credibility. In fact, two of those, the differences in two of those measures were statistically significant for whether or not they felt that they trusted the author to report the news fairly, as well as whether or not they felt the author demonstrated expertise in the subject matter. I think really to a certain extent what this speaks to is this idea that really what it was a credential appeal. And it was directed at those, really kind of a shared idea of moral values around ethical and accurate news coverage. And to a certain extent, I really think that what it was is a value proposition that resonated with the participants and to some extent possibly actually activated concerns around bias and other issues and misgivings with mainstream media as it exists in the United States today. Specifically though, my recommendation for the organization is that in order to really understand this better, they should continue sort of an experiment-informed approach by varying the different variables that I would use. So whether it's the country of where it's being reported on, whether or not it's the particular issue, as well as maybe changing the author. But one of the things that I really think that the organization should emphasize is really focusing on kind of emphasizing the unique advantage when people first access the articles. So for development practices is relevant, particularly in contexts where we need to persuade people, and we need to convince people to open a bank account in rural Kenya, whether they want to convince them to start a public health intervention. Really, there are a bunch of complex processes in process, and the more we understand them, the better able we are to have an impact when we do our work. So thank you all, I'll take your questions. Please.
So how can you guarantee that the journalists at GBI actually have expertise?
So basically what they do is they go through an extensive process of training. And so the organization's been around for more than 10 years, and they actually have about an 80% retention rate. So what you have is not just people who are from the place, but they also have been journalists, for a number of years. And besides that, they have really kind of ongoing professional training as well. And so I've actually been part of that, where I worked with some people just as a translator, kind of helping them develop their skills around photojournalism, for instance.
Maybe ask a similar question to what asked for women. So this is kind of about the supply.
Mm-hmm.
There have been a number of attempts to try to get better journalism around development issues,
Mm-hmm.
some by the UN, some by others. Uptake by the main media has always been difficult. So it's kind of the marketing of these channels as channels has always been challenging. Do you get any sense of once they look at it, sure, present it that way. What about marketing the channels to get them looked at it at all?
Yeah, no, so I think specifically that's part of what the idea behind this project was, is because the organization is working to sort of grow its membership. And part of that, just based on some of the studies that have been done, really from organizations that collaborate with like AP, for example, really this issue of credibility and trust is pretty fundamental and get people to even want to bother paying. And so obviously, many of us, we access our news for free, and finding ways to really make it worthwhile is important. And so I think this is just sort of an argument for an organization to be able to say that they can really sell their product to people because it has this added value to it. In terms of like uptake overall, I think that is a pretty big question, like generally speaking, and so I think it's particularly hard to do that in the whole environment. I think I was just kind of trying to address specifically their needs. Is that?
Okay. I see the number moved from 4 to 460, or from how significant are they in terms I thought it would be good from 1 to 4.
Yeah, so this is a 6-point scale, and so basically what you have is anything below like a 3 is disagreement. So that is a good question, and I think that really is kind of open to interpretation. I think really though the point that this sort of emphasizes is that either way, even with a small sample size, this effect is relatively strong. And so in terms of what that means and how much uptake there might be, I think that's a different question. So I agree. Okay. All right, thank you.